Hi guys, welcome to the Pilosopo podcasts. I am so proud to call this next guest of mine a dear friend. He's the outgoing president of the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. He's the outgoing president of that organization. He's also the CEO of Spartan Philippines. Actually, he does more than that, but that's what we can talk about, at least in the beginning. We're going to ask him what else he does. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Guenter Taus.
Good afternoon, Chiggy. Thanks for the nice introduction. It's good to be back, as always. Pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can chat about this afternoon, so let's get started.
Yeah, I know we have so many things to talk about. I think we have all this food and some drinks here. I think we're intending to live here for a couple of days, right, Guenter?
Yeah, it looks pretty homey here. A lot of chips, a lot of peanuts here, good Coke, a bottle of whiskey, so everything that one needs to have a good shot.
Yes, absolutely. Guenter, first things first. Tell us the story about who Guenter Taus is. Obviously, you're the CEO of Spartan Philippines. That's a huge undertaking. You're also the outgoing president of the ECCP. You also manage several other companies and other NGOs or non-governmental organizations. Tell us the story about who Guenter Taus is, where he was born, what he did when he was a kid, where he went to school, and all that stuff. In a nutshell, of course, because we don't have all week.
So in a nutshell, you want me to be Rapunzel, let down your hair. Okay, fine. I'll try to do that. I was born in Austria, in a small little town near Innsbruck.
Okay.
And that I will not tell you what year it was now. It was 1959.
Okay.
I lived my first 4 years of my life in Austria.
Okay.
And my father was a construction engineer, and he wanted to explore the world. So 1963, when I was 4 years old, we actually left Austria, and I grew up for a couple of years in Malaysia.
Okay.
From Malaysia, always with short interruptions in Austria, we went on to Pakistan, lived in Pakistan for a couple of years.
Okay.
From there, we went to Morocco. Then I went back to Austria and studied in Austria. I hold an electronics engineering degree. From there, I ventured out. My first actual job was in Guatemala. So I went from Austria to Guatemala, stayed in Guatemala for about a year and a half. From there, I worked for a German company. It was a construction company, but I took care of the electronic part, a number of different things. And from there, I ventured out for the same company to Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia was my first contact with Filipinos, because my workforce had about 600 people reporting to me. Majority of them were Filipinos. So that was the first touch I got, and everybody told me, you got to come to our country, it's the best country in the world. And since I was then already an enthusiastic scuba diver, I said, well, it's a good place to try out. So my first time I came to the Philippines was August 1980.
Okay.
My first trip was, I didn't like Manila then, because it was too crowded. It's a city I could never live in, so never say never.
That was back in 1980, right?
It was 1980.
It was already crowded.
It was already very crowded.
Okay.
Then I went to Cebu. That's when I discovered for the first time Boal Boal. I've liked Cebu. I've liked the surroundings of Cebu. Then I went back, and from between 1980 and 1986, I actually traveled back and forth to the Philippines quite often, 3-4 times a year for scuba diving and just to explore the country. So I guess by now, after 40 years, I have seen more of the Philippines than probably most Filipinos. In '86, after my contract was over in Saudi, I decided to, with an Austrian partner, to come to the Philippines and set up a company. And we came here beginning of February 1986. So I was here for the original ETSA revolution and every
ETSA 1, they call it.
And every ETSA 1, 2, 3, whatever after that. So yeah, I've seen all the presidents from Marcos through Cory, through Ramos, through whatever else, to the present time.
Wow, you sound like you're more Filipino than most Filipinos I know. Obviously you've journeyed around the world. You're what people would call a journeyman. You've traveled around the world, and yet you picked these islands of the Philippines. What do you think? What was the lure? What was the reason why you finally settled on at least stay here for you said 4 decades in the Philippines? Why was that? What do you think happened?
But I guess it's a number of it's not a single reason. It's a number of things that happened. While I was in Saudi Arabia, I met my first wife.
Okay.
We got married in '82. We had a daughter. Charmaine. She was born in '82 in Saudi Arabia,
Okay.
and I always said I do not want, if I ever have children, I do not want them to grow up the way I did, that your parents take you out to a different country every couple of years, because you keep on, it seems like Groundhog Day, you know, you keep on revisiting the same thing over and over again, you build up friends and then you're taken out and you do start all over again. So in '86, when my original contract was over, I did a 6-month stint for Saudi Arabian Airlines. That didn't work out very well. So I said, no, I had enough of corporate life. So I looked at the Philippines because I said, let's settle down somewhere. I did not want to go back to Europe.
But she was Filipina.
She was Filipino.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't want to go back to Europe for a number of reasons. I've never really associated myself very deeply with Europe to live there. I'm still European
Okay.
and probably always will be. But I wanted to be in a tropical country. So the Philippines, and looking at the Philippines, looking at opportunities, I said, well, this is a perfect country because it is so down in comparison to the rest of Asia. It can only go up.
Yeah.
Little did I know then, okay. But basically it was a combination of finding a home for my daughter, finding a place wherein I can relate to people, and as I said, I have been working with Filipinos for many years, and was always a positive experience. Mentality is pretty Western. Everybody speaks English, predominantly Roman Catholic, so all the ingredients were there to say, fine, Philippines is probably the way to go. And looking at the opportunities you have in the country, had and still have, I said, perfect place. That's how I came here.
You've obviously been, like I said, around the world. You've done so many things. What do you think is the operating system? If you were a computer, what would your operating system be? What gets you up every single morning? Why does Guenter Taus get up in the morning and do what you do, and do it with passion, and do it for a long period of time? What do you think that is?
It's a hard question to answer, Chiggy, but I think what makes me tick is really challenge.
Okay.
I couldn't run a corporate job. I've done this for 11 years and it burns me out. To do the same thing every day and in and every day out is not what I do. I think I'm pretty opportunistic. I look at something and say, fine, there's an opportunity there. So how can we structure this thing now to make it workable?
Okay.
So I really look for challenges and I look for things to do that move me on. And I have to say, I do feed on intelligence. I like to work with brainy people. That's why I'm here with you.
Okay.
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 It's always good to work with people that think on their own, that think on their feet. So I think I'm all about empowering people and bringing them up with me, and you feed off each other rather than to just be a one-man show. So I like to have tangible teams and workable teams around me that I can bring up with me, and we do things together. And I think the Philippines is a perfect place because Europe is very stale when it comes to entrepreneurship, and the Philippines is all about entrepreneurship because there's hardly enough jobs for the people, so everybody has to think on their toes and on their feet in order to feed their families. And it's a very conducive environment to actually look at opportunities and find, I see something here, so how can we develop that? So,
I have a lot of family members who have decided to leave the Philippines and live abroad, especially the United States, or some of them are in Europe. You, in the meantime, are doing the complete opposite. You're from Europe, and you've decided to stay here in the Philippines. What do you say to those people that, especially those Filipinos who are out there, and because sometimes it takes a foreigner to find out how great or how beautiful your country is, and obviously that's what happened to you. I mean, obviously you were a foreigner 40 years ago, but now you're as Filipino as a Filipino can be. What do you tell our friends who are watching this podcast and who are watching this from the United States or from Europe or from elsewhere, not in the Philippines?
I would say there's a number of issues here that are very interesting aspects. First of all, it was easier probably for me as a European to come to the Philippines and set up something here because I was accepted without any malice. I had no issues with a visa and with POEA to get a visa to work abroad. Okay. I think I had a fairly decent education. I am entrepreneurial by nature. If you, on the context, look with majority of the overseas work of Filipinos that go abroad. They're basically craftsmen that have no opportunity. They do not have enough money to set up their own business. They have huge families to feed. So I think it's their only opportunity to actually make a halfway decent living to go abroad. For me, it was the other way around. I didn't look for, I don't have a big clan in Austria that I have to feed. They're all okay. They all feed themselves. So it was just my child and my wife at that time that I have to look after. But I think it's very difficult if you grow up in this environment. You probably don't see what's right in front of your nose, because you take it for granted. It's always easier to judge something from the outside looking in than from the inside looking out. So I think for me, still, even after 32 years that I've lived here, I still look at the Philippines with different eyes than a Filipino, because it is not my natural environment. My natural environment was Europe and European community, even when I grew up in different countries, but it's still a very European dominated environment that I was brought up. So I look at the Philippines still, say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I hate this, I hate that, that could be improvement here, that could be improvement there. While for Filipino, this is home. This is what you grew up with. So you would not look at it with critical eyes. You would just take it, well, that's what it is. Yeah. While if I look out here, I say, well, why is that fence in the middle of the road? So I do question things because I'm inquisitive by nature. Yeah. And I think that's what makes the difference. If you grow up in a place, you hardly see the opportunities that it has. And as I said, probably for 95% of the 10 million Filipinos that work abroad, it's their only chance to make a decent living. And once they get to the United States or to Europe or wherever, I have a lot of Filipino friends in Austria. They love Austria, they love to be there. And I guess most of them at one point in time would want to come back. But they come back with a different outlook of the world. And I think that's what is needed in order to see improvements in the country.
The Philippines is an archipelagic nation. We have like 7,107 islands, right? And so there's no, it's difficult to sort of have one a way of looking at the world. There's probably like as many islands in the Philippines as the way we look at the world. That's why we're sort of like a very disjointed, very divided nation, because we're separated by waters. Is Europe more united? Would you say that Europe is more united than the Philippines as a nation? Of course, Europe is not a nation. It's a hodgepodge of nations. But in terms of culture, in terms of the way we look at the world as Europeans, do you have like a united way of looking at the world? And what can the Philippines, in terms of worldview, learn from the Europeans, perhaps?
Well, I would just like to use one very simple example. Austria, very small country. We have 8 million people. Out of the 8 million, 5 million are Austrians.
Okay.
Naturally born Austrians. 3 million are predominantly Turks and what have you.
Okay.
But Austria has 9 provinces and our capital is Vienna.
Okay.
If people ask me, oh, you're Austrian, I say, I'm Austrian. Are you from Vienna? I say, no, I'm Austrian. So a Viennese is not an Austrian. Just to name an example, we are as divided and as united probably as the Philippines.
Okay.
So I don't think that is a particular phenomenon that you only have in the Philippines. For me, being a provinciano in Austria, I look at the Viennese as the imperialistic.
Like the Manila.
Vienna, exactly.
Okay.
So you have, I think you have that everywhere else, even in Germany, Switzerland. It's pretty much the same. Here it is, of course, compounded by the division of water and by the division of different regions, different beliefs, even partly religious beliefs. So it makes it harder. You have 60 plus different dialects. I mean, languages.
60 plus?
Yeah, in the Philippines.
Okay.
Language is not just dialects,
Yeah.
it's probably a lot more dialects.
Yeah.
So it's a much more difficult environment to bring people together. But at the end of the day, I have to say, I haven't met a Filipino that has not said, I'm proud to be Filipino. Yeah. You might have nuances of that. In Cebu, they would say, I'm proud to be Cebuano, okay? So,
Yeah. You said that everything's pretty much the same in Europe as in the Philippines. And true enough, there's turmoil politically in the United States. There's turmoil of sorts here in the Philippines. And there's also turmoil in Europe, right? The whole Brexit thing and all that stuff. maybe you can explain to our Filipino friends who are watching this podcast, again in a nutshell, what is going on with Europe, Gunther?
Well, I think the issue in Europe is, if you look back the past few years, we seem to be leaning very much towards the right now. And that was brought about by tremendous migration from Africa and whatnot. And when countries are on their peak in terms of their economy, it wouldn't make a difference. But if you are going down, and you're struggling for jobs, and then you have all sorts of migrants coming in, taking the jobs away, that doesn't sit very well with the population. The small town that I was born in has a population of about 10,000, and we have 4,000 Austrians, 6,000 Turks. Yeah, so there's a lot of, how should I say, tension, seriously racial tensions. That we don't need them, we don't want them. And I said, but guys, you brought them in. So, you brought them in, you got to live with it. And I think that spurs a lot of the issues you have. Brexit. If you break down what happened during that vote when they went to the plebiscite for voting, well, do we want to stay in the EU or not? It was a very, very high risk that they took then to actually bring that to the people and say vote, because there was no education attached to it. None. And if you look at the epicenters of where was it yes and where was it no, London, which is probably the most educated part of the UK, they all wanted to stay in because they knew what the implications are if they get out. If you then go out to the rural areas, they all said, no, we don't need it, we don't want it, because they didn't understand it. So I think the British government then made a major mistake not to educate people what the EU actually is and what a Brexit actually means. So, and again, it was fueled by pretty much racial issues. People who voted no, they said, well, we want to keep our borders closed. We want to be able to say yes or no, that person should come in or not. So again, you have a lot of racial tensions in Europe, and that partly drags down and basically motivates people to vote much more right-leaning than center.
They say that if you had a re-election for Brexit would lose.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I'm very sure by now that all the Brits, even the ones in the most rural areas, have understood what it is.
Okay. But they're going to push forward it and actually do it.
Well, my personal opinion from the very first day, and it still stands, is I still think they will stay in the EU, one way or the other.
Really?
Yeah. Again, I might swallow my words in a few weeks or a few months down the road, but I think because at the end of the day, common sense should prevail. Yeah? And it doesn't make any sense. First of all, the UK has never really been part of the EU. They're not part of the Schengen Agreement. They're not part of the Monetary Union. They have another 160 exemptions. So they want to get out of something they were never into, really, if you break it down. Again, it's well, the Brits are the best, I guess.
What does it mean to be a citizen of the world, Gunther? I mean, like for example, if you're a citizen of the United States, I mean, like the United States is really a melting pot of cultures and nations. The only original American, if you really think about it, are the American Indians, right? And they're also, just like the Europeans are trying to stave off all this migrants, right? Immigrants, or at least those that are illegally coming into the nation. There was like a caravan that was highlighted during the elections a few weeks ago. There were a bunch of thousands of migrants that were supposedly going to the United States. It was highlighted, but of course it was all political. My question here is, what does it mean to be a citizen of the world, and why can't I migrate to a nation that I want? And to the other side, as a nation, like you said, who's not really in the pink of its health economically, can I afford to shy away migrants just because my country can't support my citizens, and now I'm looking for other problems? What do we do with this migration problem? In other words, I read an article about how it's crucial that Europe has to solve their migration problem. I think it was Hillary Clinton, a former presidential candidate in the United States. She said that it's crucial that Europe solves their migration problem, because I think this is where it all starts. And if you do solve your problem, your migration problem in Europe, I think it'll be a shining example to the world on how to deal with a migration problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think first of all, the United States should look at their own migration issues.
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
I think they're by now larger than what we have in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, I've always lived in a fairly idealistic world of my own, and that's why I love scuba diving. Scuba diving doesn't know any borders, you know. The fish doesn't matter, for fish it doesn't matter.
Doesn't know if you're European or Filipino, right?
Indonesia or in Malaysia or... So all I'm trying to say is I think all these boundaries that we live in, we've brought it upon ourselves, you know. We put up borders, we put up passports that you need to travel around. But at the end of the day, do I as Austrian have a right to live in the Philippines? Do you as a Filipino have a right to live in Europe? I do believe in the free spirit and free travel. I appreciate my Austrian passport because I can travel pretty much everywhere in the world without a visa. I feel sorry for every Filipino that wants to travel to Europe and has to fall in line for 3 weeks and get 50,000 documents to get a visa. But it is what it is. I think we brought it upon ourselves. But by and large, I think we should be free to travel and should be free to choose where we want to live. Yeah? And I've taken that choice and I've taken that liberty and I will continue doing so.
Well, that's a very ideal world that you're envisioning, Guenter, but I hope we'll get there soon. Maybe not in our lifetimes, right?
Probably not. Even sorry to quickly continue on with that. I have also started a few months ago to question, for instance, why is a Filipino not allowed to take on a job in Austria? Why do you have to go through POEA to your government to allow you to work in another country? I'm sorry, you know. For me as Austrian, if the Austrian government would tell me, no, you can't work in the Philippines. Excuse me, who are you? You know, I choose where I work, and I do not want to ask you where I'm allowed to work. So but those are limitations that are put on by governments, yeah, and not by people. And for whatever reason, nonsense reasons.
Isn't that for security purposes? That's why a government needs to know where you're going and where you're working.
Why would it be a government's concern where I am?
You know, it's a security reason. Like, you know, the embassy, for example, if something happens to you.
Yeah, sure. But when I go to another country, I call up the embassy. Hey, I'm going to Taos. I'm here. So please register me at the embassy. If there's an evacuation plan, you know where I am. Okay. It's as simple as that. I don't need 50,000 documents, 150,000 pesos to go to another country.
So you're saying it's kind of difficult. The government in the Philippines is making it difficult for me to be able to work abroad, or in your case, Austria. You know, that is a very complex issue. You know, the geopolitics, and you know, we might lose our viewers. So let's change gears for a moment. Right. Because I'm looking at your shirt now. It says Spartan. Of course, you are the CEO of Spartan Philippines. First and foremost, how did Spartan Philippines run into your life? I mean, like, how did you find Spartan Philippines? And second of all, tell us about, especially our viewers, again, in a nutshell, what is the big idea behind Spartan?
It's actually a fairly long and complex story how I got about, but I'll try to shorten it down as much as I can. Okay. Very, very old former partner of mine, who I was in plastic injection molding with here 30 years ago, he approached me about 2 years ago. He said, you know, I built his Malaysian Chinese. He said, you know, I built all the obstacles for Spartan. I said, who's Spartan? What's an obstacle race? So I Googled it and okay, fine, I understand what it is. He said, you know, I build all the obstacles for them, and they have a marketing office for Southeast Asia in Singapore, and their cost is running away. They would like to find an option to bring it to the Philippines. And I said, sure, how do they want to go about it? So I started talking to Spartan. I put up a company here called Spartan Race Asia. In this case, we transferred their operations from Singapore. That's basically the marketing team for all the Asian countries. Okay. We transferred them to the Philippines. We have an office in W Building in Manila, in PGC. Transferred that operation over there and started up tackling all the marketing issues for Asia from there. I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations. I'm not a manager there. I just basically am the CEO of it. The next question was, well, we need to find a partner who will do the races in the Philippines. Why would you look any further? We're here. That's how it started. And I said, do you want to take on the franchise? I said, sure. I mean, we're here already. We do all the marketing for Asia. Might as well take on the Philippines. So I did my first race that I actually did myself was probably beginning of last year in Malaysia. I just loved it. I said, I like to climb up mountains and I like to climb up waterfalls. And it's perfect scenario, perfect environment. I said, we can do that also in the Philippines. So that's when we started.
How many have we done here in the Philippines, and what was the turnout?
We have our first race. We started the franchise last year. I believe it was June or July.
Okay.
We did our first race last year, September, in Timberland. That is in San Mateo, Rizal.
Okay.
It was a sprint at that time and a hurricane heat and a kids race, and we had about 1,800 people there. So it was a very low start. Our second race was up in Alviera in Clark. We had about 3,000. It was a sprint and a super, and a kids race and a hurricane heat. Our third race was here in Cebu. It was up in Foresa.
Foresa, yeah.
Foresa was a smaller race because it was logistically a challenge because it's fairly far up, not enough parking, so it was logistically tough. What we talked about before, no internet access and whatnot. So we had about 2,400 people, and it was just a sprint and a hurricane heat in the evening. So if you do single races, usually your count goes down. But if you do a sprint and a super sprint and a beast, then usually the count
Just
goes
like
up.
the one in Clark, right?
In Clark, exactly. And our last race was in September up in Subic. That was a trifecta weekend, which is the trifecta Asia in order to go on to the World Championships. It was during the typhoon. I think you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you were there. So you know the mess we had cutting it from 2 days to a one-day event, but we still had a little bit over 5,000 racers.
Yeah, unbelievable, the enthusiasm. There were like a lot of crazy people there. It's unbelievable. You know, what do you think drives people to push the limits? I mean, like it is such a difficult sport. You know, obstacle race. What do you think? What's the allure? What's the why do people love to do this whole Spartan thing? What do you think?
I think it's challenging yourself. It's finding your limits. I mean, for me, the first race I did, and I didn't really train for it.
Okay.
I said, well, I just get on my shoes and I go run. Finally, it took me 2 hours and a little bit to go through, but eventually I made it, and I said, well, I'm proud of myself. And every race thereafter I improve, and I can see that actually you get better and better at it, and it's a challenge to yourself. And I think you sit in an office all day, or you have a job somewhere, you want to break away, you want to do something different. And I think a lot of sports, you go to the gym every day, it's monotonous, you know, it's the same thing every time and every time and every time. And with an obstacle race, and kid you not, you go anywhere in the world and do a Spartan race, it's different everywhere. Even here, you will not do the same race. We have different obstacles, different terrains. We can assemble the obstacles in a different way. So it's always a challenge, a different challenge that you will not get bored. And if you look at Cebu now, we have teamed up with Gorilla. You were there during the when we made the announcement. So we've teamed up with Gorilla Boot Camp. So we call it Gorilla OCC, and we're building an obstacle training camp in down from here in what's that?
Crossroads.
Crossroads, yeah. Should be finished. We'll be opening officially January 15. So we give people, instead of going to a gym and trying to replicate whatever they do in a Spartan race, we give them actually obstacles outdoor that they can train with. At the same time, we will offer yoga, Pilates, we offer martial arts classes and whatnot. So really a very interactive activity. And on weekends, we can go out to Mandaue and do races there with the boot camp.
You know, it is more of a mental challenge, more than a physical challenge. I mean, like the physical challenge is already a given, right? You've got to be physically fit to be able to do any sport, you know. And I think one of the most crucial components of succeeding, or at least finishing at the minimum, if not excelling in obstacle race, is mental toughness,
Absolutely.
right? Is mental toughness teachable, and if so, do you teach that in your trainings, how to be mentally tough? Because you know, being mentally tough can, of course, not just be applied in a Spartan race, but to everything, every facet of life.
It is certainly trainable. It is certainly something you can push yourself to. And as I said, the first couple of races I did, I pushed myself to my limit, and it's actually the limiting factor of what you can do is your brain and not your body.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll be surprised. Yeah? I mean, I started parachuting
Parachuting?
30 years ago here, and I broke my arm in 3,000 feet, and I was about to conk out because it was painful. Okay? And then that was the first encounter I actually had wherein I said, your mind gets you anywhere you want. I said, fine, I shut out that pain, it doesn't exist because I want to survive, and it works. And the same thing in the Spartan race. You are halfway up that obstacle. It's not your body that gives up, it's your mind. But then you train your mind, say, no, I get up there because I want to get up there.
You know, it's easy for us to say that, you know, that we're more or less self-motivated individuals, right? But there are people who can't control their minds. There are people who get, you know, for example, they get down and out, they get, to an extreme degree, they get depressed. And for some reason, they can't control their minds the way we control our minds. What are your thoughts on controlling our minds? I mean, like, are there just people who are suited to motivate themselves and do not need external factors to be motivated? And there are just some people who are sort of like have a tendency to not get motivated and get depressed instead of getting challenged.
Now that will bring us now to a very psychological subject.
Yeah.
Introverts versus extroverts, because an introvert is very hard to motivate.
Yeah.
An extrovert is naturally motivated. But if you look now, look at it from a Spartan point of view, and you will be amazed when you see, and I walk those courses in between the races because I want to understand what people think, what people feel, and you will be amazed. Big, huge guy who would never on his own be able to climb that obstacle. You have 50 people, you can do it, and you see them climb over. So I think also, if you do this in a group and if you get that adrenaline push to push you forward, they can do it. And everybody who walks through the finishing line says, wow, I never thought I can do it, and I did it. And I mean, I speak of experience. My own daughter, she said, I could never do a Spartan race. She just did one in Austria, and she said, wow, this was one experience that I would never want to forget, and it will drive me on. I have overcome a lot of my personal fears, and I will push on, and I will do Spartan races.
You know, one of the things that I do when I start a race is pump the people up, hype them up, right? And one of the things that I say is, you know, you're not going to allow anybody not to finish or something like that, right? You're going to make sure that everybody finishes. Is that part of the Spartan culture? Do you guys like are the participants, are the racers help each other out and push each other and all that?
The slogan here is, we do not leave anyone behind.
Okay.
And just next, anyway, you'll be in Cavite during the next race. Just take maybe 10-15 minutes, walk the course, and you will see how people actually motivate others to push on.
Each other,
each other. And if somebody can climb an obstacle, come on, I'll help you. There's camaraderie, that's amazing. When we do hurricane heats, we had the first hurricane heat in Timberland with about 300 people, which was a nightmare.
Okay.
But they went out, an absolute disorganized mess. There was no discipline, nothing. 4 hours, they came back as a rock solid team, and most of them still actually talk to each other because they really formed a solid group, and just by helping out each other. When they said, we do not leave, one guy actually sprained his ankle, he couldn't walk. They carried him for the 4 hours, but he finished the race with them. So it's tremendous what you can do as a group and firing each other on.
Now, you know, most competitions, races are, you know, individual competitions, right? Like they really want to finish first, and they don't really care about everybody else. In fact, you know, the more people who don't finish the race, the better off they are. At least that's what I know of when it comes to competitions in the Philippines. But Spartan race is different. And are we talking about complete strangers here who just help each other all of a sudden, or are these individuals you know, like familiar with each other because they've raced before? Or is it just your Spartan culture? Is it just the slogan and the battle cry and the hype that we tell them and remind them to make sure that they don't leave everybody behind or anybody behind?
It's stranger helping stranger. That's why if you see the structure of the races, we have the first elite heat out in the morning, those are really the elites. They do not look back.
Okay.
They want to be first.
Okay.
So those are really serious athletes that are built and that are trained.
Okay.
They're trained to win.
Okay.
So you want to separate them from
That's why
the
they're
rest.
a different group.
Exactly. That's why the first 2-3 heats out in the morning, they're really the elites, and they don't want to run with others because they want to win.
Leave the hell them alone. right?
Exactly. And so after that, the general heats and the age heats and whatnot, they're all people. They all have one thing only in their mind. They want to do that race.
Okay.
They want to finish that race, and that already binds them together. That already is that bond that you need in order to see each other through. And I mean, we all have weak moments. I don't want to. Come on, let's go. And it really motivates. When I do a sweeping run in the eve or late afternoon before the last people, because we monitor, we can see how many people are on course because we do real-time monitoring, provided we have internet access. Okay? But so we know how many people are on course, and I usually start sweeping when there's about 100, 200 left, and I'm still fresh, and they're halfway through. So I say, come on, let's go. And last time in Clark, I had about 100 people running with me. Yeah, the last I said, guys, no excuses, let's go, we can do this. And you know, you motivate people by saying, look, I can do it, you can do it, so everybody can do it. So it's a camaraderie that builds between strangers, and a lot of friendships are born out of that.
You know, Spartan race is a fairly difficult challenge, right? And is it something that older people can do? Like, because some people they really want to be able to be still physically active even at an advanced age. Is this something that you would recommend somebody who's maybe in his 50s or 60s or even 70s? Is this something that they can still do, or do you discourage these people from participating in a Spartan race?
Well, I'm 59 and I still run the races.
Wow, okay.
So I do not see a reason why I could not run it if I'm 70 or 80.
Okay.
I mean, just to name an example, I'm a scuba instructor.
Okay.
I've hold on, 35 different instructor ratings.
Okay.
And people in their 50s, 60s walk up to me and say, am I too old to get a scuba license? I say, look, the oldest guy that I've certified is 82 years old.
82 years old.
82 years old.
Wow.
A Japanese guy, 82 years old. I've trained him scuba diving. He dives. He enjoys it.
You know, the idea of retiring, of resting when you're at an advanced age is a fairly, I don't know if it's a Filipino, but you know, a lot of Filipino friends, they plan their retirement. You know, I'm going to retire at 60 and do nothing or something like that. What are your thoughts on that? Are you the kind of person that is planning on your retirement, or are you like me? Do you want to be kicking and screaming to your grave?
But when people ask me, when will you retire? I said, I do not know the day when I die, because that's the day when
That's
I
retirement,
retired.
right?
I could not imagine not to do anything. I mean, we are not built to sit home and at home and not do anything. I think, you know, and it doesn't matter what age you are.
Okay.
It is just the limitation of what we can do takes place in our mind. I never looked at myself, hey, you're 59, there's something you cannot do. Why can I not do it? I did it when I was 19, and I'm sure I'll do it when I'm still 80. I might not do it at the same speed and at the same ferocity, but I will still do it. It's a mindset, nothing else.
You're obviously a very motivated person, Guenter, and I can tell that by the way you talk. You're very passionate. You know, it really comes from the heart and all that stuff. Where do you get that? I mean, like I know in the beginning I asked you about what makes you tick, and you know you like to empower people and all that stuff. But like in terms of physical health, in terms of you know, a secret sauce. Do you have any? Like, do you have a specific vitamin or supplement perhaps that you take, or do you have a special regimen that you do, like work out every day or run every day, or what is your secret? What keeps the fire in your belly burning?
My secret recipe would be a good glass of red wine in the evening.
Okay.
But other than that, I think it's all self-motivation.
Okay.
And if you look upon the world in sorrow and say, fine, I cannot do this or I cannot do that, then you can never do it. It's just really self-motivation. And I enjoy creating things. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy talking to you, because it's always good to exchange points.
Okay.
And for me, it's all a learning process. I love to learn, and every day I learn. You know, it doesn't matter how old you get or how old you become, you still always learn. You know? And that's what motivates me to get up every morning. So there's so much to do. I don't know where to start, but I start somewhere, and I'm getting somewhere. So for me, my day is 24 hours. I sleep with a little notepad by my bedside table, and I write down things when I wake up. So it's the mind is constantly working. I want to get engaged. I want to stay engaged. So.
You know, you mentioned learning. Who do you look up to? I mean, like, is there like a specific thinker, a great philosopher, perhaps, or a great leader that Guenter Taus looks up to and sort of patterns his life after? Is there like a favorite line or two that you can quote from that individual that will explain why you look up to that individual or individuals?
There would not be a single one. There would be a multitude of them.
Okay.
And if you ask me off the top of the head, you know, every situation actually motivates me to look at something else.
Okay.
And no, there's no single source.
Okay.
There's not a single person that would inspire me. If it's psychologically, it would probably be Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud.
Yeah. Would be a very good inspiration for me. Probably not the right.
Everything is sex, so connected to sex.
No.
That part of Sigmund Freud's teaching, which part?
Basically the way he dissects things and he analyzes things.
Okay.
So I like the analytical part of it. I like to understand why things happen because they happen for a reason. Probably Albert Einstein was a very inspiring personality, highly intelligent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a number of things, a number of people you look at. I mean, if I would say who would I look up to from a purely political point of view, it might come across wrongly, but I think one of the best inspirational speakers I've ever heard was Hitler. And there's only one that I've never heard Hitler live, just recordings. But one person that I would say had very similar skills to Hitler was actually President Marcos. I heard a speech of his in 1980 live, and it just gives you goosebumps. And you see 2 million people just in awe. I mean, this guy had a charisma.
So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You look up to Hitler's points of view, or are you just looking? You admire his charisma.
I admired his ability to speak in a public crowd. Likewise, I have to say, former President Ramos, I toured with him for quite a long time. He also had the charisma to tie people to reel them in, to make them integral part of his speech.
I can't get over the fact that you mentioned you admired the way Hitler his charisma changed and actually motivated one of the perhaps for some people one of the greatest crimes in history, right? In fact,
not talking about crime. Okay? I'm just talking about the way
he motivates
his speeches were delivered. Yeah?
Okay.
With the rest, no, of course, I don't agree. That's why I said maybe the wrong person to mention. But all I'm trying to say is I've really and as I said, Marcos and Ramos have similar abilities to just speak. I mean, I've seen Ramos in Germany during when 1999 when Philippines was partner country for the Hanover Fair. There was a crowd of about 10,000 people in that room, and he delivered a speech. It just blows you away.
You know, Hitler could not have done it alone, right? I mean, like, he was a great motivational speaker. He was a great mover. He inspired his people to do whatever crime he committed, at least when we look back in history, and as well as other great leaders, right? And we have, of course, new leaders now, new set of leaders in 2018. You know, we have Trump in the United States. We have Duterte in the Philippines, and we have a slew of nationalistic leaders these days, right? I think this is the complete reaction to globalism. What are your thoughts on these sort of surge of populism, a surge of nationalism that's enveloping the entire world?
I find it a pity because, and I've said it on national TV more than once, we've been trying now for 32 years that I'm here. We've been trying to opening borders, and not just in the Philippines, but globally. You know, we've taken down trade barriers. We have a bilateral, multilateral agreements, and what have you. We've tried to open up the world, not only for travel that we mentioned before, but also for trade. And now all these new leaders come in and throw everything overboard that we've worked for 30 years. Why? I mean, I do not see anything wrong with free trade. It brings quality up, it brings prices down. And that's what I've been advocating for in the last couple of years in the Philippines. Why do you have to limit foreign ownership, for instance? I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with me as Austrian being here. I mean, I've run companies here with 1,000, 2,000 people. I'm the only foreigner, the rest are all Filipinos anyway. So I think we should look a little bit more openly to those things and say, fine, if we open barriers, if you open our borders to free trade, that brings down the prices for everyone and increases the quality. So I do not see anything wrong with it. And this protectionism is, in my opinion, the wrong way to go. Very long way to go.
You know, Europe is fairly a relatively democratic continent, group of nations. The United States, of course, a democracy. The Philippines is a democracy. And we're having some, just suffice it to say, some problems, right? In the meantime, China is succeeding and, in fact, is dominating in many facets of the world. What are your thoughts on the rise of China, and what does it mean to the world that China is, as one article I read indicated, is the country that refuses to fail?
But if you the good old saying is God made the world, all the rest is made in China, is really true. And if you look 30 years back, who actually empowered China to become what it is was actually the Western world out of greediness. You know, labor in Europe or in the States is too expensive. We need to find cheaper places to manufacture.
Go to China,
Go to China. And we made China what it is. And now suddenly you have a Trump says, wait a minute, what happened here? Hey, it was your country who did it, along with all the other developed nations. But I think it's unfair to look at China and say they're opportunistic. Of course they are.
Of course.
But we empower them to do and to be what they are and who they are. So why wouldn't they? If I empower you to be a single supplier, you take the opportunity. So I think they did the right thing. They run with it.
So are you saying that China is succeeding and democracy doesn't work? That letting people do what they want to do doesn't work, and you've got to have some sort of a more stringent government control when it comes to running nations? No, is the way China is being ran the better solution? Are you saying that?
In the case of China, yes, it worked. In the case of Russia, it didn't work. So I think the political form, whether you're a democracy or you're a dictatorship or whatever it may, or you're a communist country, does not determine the success that you have. It is basically and if you look at the hierarchy, it is the top that dictates what happens in the bottom. And I think China was very smart the way they structured it, the way they brought businesses into their country, the way they helped those businesses to get established. It was a lot of government interference, a lot of government help, something that we completely miss in most other Asian countries. It's you're on your own, government is not there to help you. So China did a lot of things the right way and succeeded. Whether you need to have, I think in order to succeed in a developing country, you need a little bit of a strong hand in order to focus people on the right track. Because if not, you have everyone running off in the wrong direction, in its own direction. So leadership is important, but I still believe very much in democracy, because to me that's the only form. It's how I grew up. And I do believe in individual choices.
But it's failing all over the world. Democracy is failing all over the world. Like economies are crumbling. Democratic nations are crumbling.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with because they're democracies. Look at Russia.
Okay.
Look at the 90s or the 2000s when Russia fell apart.
Okay.
Russia was probably the example of successful communism, and
Okay.
it was a total disaster. So I don't think it's the form of government you have. I really think it's the form of leadership we have. Yeah. If I look at Europe, most of the countries, leaderships are used to be fairly left-wing and turning more and more and more right-wing, and it brings its a set of problems. The same thing in developing nations. Look at Asia. I mean, you have a lot of countries that are extremely successful. Look at for instance, Singapore. Without Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore wouldn't be what it is. And Lee Kuan Yew was a dictator, but an honest dictator. Okay, so I don't think it's the form of government that we have that determines the success or not.
So what determines the success of a nation? Is it a matter of the form of government matching the character of its people, or what is it?
Well, I would say yes. It is. The leadership has to match the mentality of people. I mean, you have run the Philippines for a long time as a dictatorship. Did it work? No, it didn't work. You have run the Philippines as a very loose democracy. Has it worked? No. Does something in between work? Yes and no. So again, I think every nation has to figure out what is the right way of leading my people to the success that we want to be at. And China did a great job at that. Yeah, so again, I think it all boils down to if you look at in a smaller scale, if you look at a company, it is really the head of the company that determines the culture and the success of the company. And if that leadership is wrong, then everything else crumbles. Because it's not bottom up, it's top down.
You know, I argue that one of the most important jobs of a leader is inspiration. I mean, like, for example, governments. I mean, like, you have a machine that is given to you if you're a president of a nation, right? That has been working for decades. You know, you have a government and it is already implied that every single person and every single part of the machine will work as long as you do, you know, what you're supposed to do, right? But the X factor, if you will, is the inspiration that you not only give to your staff, to your cabinet, but also the inspiration that you provide to the nation. And this same inspiration that you will provide, that you will express to the nation, will move people by the multitudes to build a nation. Am I being delusional?
No, I absolutely agree with you. In order to drag somebody with you, you need inspiration and you need passion.
Okay.
Yeah? And you need to make sure that you enable, and again the same word, empower people to live with you your vision. Yeah? And in most cases of government, they fail miserably to do so. Yeah?
You know, the Philippines, unlike Europe or the United States, is a third world nation, right? And a majority of our brothers and sisters are still thinking about what to eat tomorrow. I feel that that's kind of a difficult task to inspire a people whose main thought is still surviving, you know, and eating tomorrow. Don't you think so?
But Chigi, inspiration can come in different ways. Inspiration can also come in the form of enabling them and giving them jobs.
Okay.
I would also be frustrated sitting somewhere in rural areas, not being able to find a job. Of course, what do you do? So again, I think it's for government to enable these people to find jobs, to get jobs, and that's what I've been saying all along. To me, the way to success for the Philippines to alleviate poverty is tourism. Why? You go to, for instance, just to name a house number, you go to the Shangri-Las of this world. Say, look, Mr. Shangri-La, here's a 20-hectare property. Build a resort there. We give this property to you for the next 99 years for free. It's nothing there anyway. We build your road there, put us a resort there. Every resort, Mactan here, Shangri-La has about 900 employees. Yeah? So you do that and look at Bali. In Bali, that model has worked very well. You have all the big resort owners there. They have big resorts there. And why can we do that in the Philippines? Because we need to create jobs in order to motivate people, in order for them to participate in life and be I mean, responsible citizens that understand what their responsibility is towards the government, you need to enable them to have a job.
You know, we were having this conversation a few Scotches ago about how Thailand has like, I don't know, 30, 40 million tourists annually, and meanwhile in the Philippines we have like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 million, and we 4.5 million. We pale in comparison to the tourists in Thailand. And I was in Thailand a few months ago, and it is a beautiful place. But I mean, it's we're also a beautiful nation, and I think we can also have the same amount of tourists as they have, or even more. Why do you think we are lagging behind when it comes to number of tourists? What can we do to increase the number, double or triple it?
I disagree with you on one point. We don't have what Thailand has. We have a lot more.
Okay.
If I look around in Asia, I don't think there is anything equal to the Philippines in terms of natural beauty, in terms of potential of people, in terms of English speaking ability and all the things that I mentioned before, Filipino hospitality. What we lack are a number of things. One is government stepping up the game, advertising for the Philippines outside the country. There's a lot that needs to be done. Secondly is we need to upgrade our international reputation in a number of things. Thirdly is we need to put decent infrastructure in place. Look at our airports. The only world-class airport we have in this country is the new airport in Cebu. It's just mind-blowing. I've flown out of here.
Terminal 2, yeah.
Just phenomenal. That's what we need to have. And that not only one in Cebu, we need to have them all around. We need to address the traffic problem. If we can, then I would assume now we will never be able to address the traffic problem in Manila and in Cebu. So what's the next best thing? Build airports outside of the two metropolises, bring people directly to the areas where they want to be without flying through. I mean, Cebu is still manageable, but Manila is not anymore. So you fly into Manila, it takes you 2 hours to get to your hotel, wait overnight to fly to your next destination. So we've got to decentralize. That's the key to success. Provided we build that infrastructure and provided we advertise properly throughout the world and make the Philippines known. I remember a few years ago there was a very, very good campaign in London that they had, all the buses had "Wow Philippines, more fun in the Philippines." You should have seen the tourism figures of British citizens coming to the Philippines. It's gone up. So why can't we do that?
I don't know. You tell me.
We need to build resorts. We need to build roads. We need to build infrastructure.
Expanding our doors, opening our doors to more tourists here in this already very populated nation, right? Is very very challenging, and having a solution, having just one solution for a nation, in this case tourism. What if it doesn't work? What else do you think can we do as a nation in case tourism is not it?
No, Chigi, it has not, and that's what we have been doing with the chamber for all these years. The issue is not just about tourism. When we go to Europe on our roadshows, we have different pillars that we stand on. We promote, of course, tourism. We promote manufacturing or assembly. We see that European companies look at the Philippines as a potential manufacturing grounds. We have skilled labor here. We have all the other things that are needed. We also look at agriculture. We look at medical tourism. So we look at it holistically. We look at the BPO sector, IT sector. So we look at job creation in general. Yeah? What we need to do is look at job creation. And I've always said it is nice to have build. Once it gets built. We're not there yet, but once that takes off, of course, there's a lot of jobs associated with it, but at the same time, we cannot just sit back and say we do build, and then what? Then we have built a lot of things and nobody has a job to afford it. So we need to, and build is for a limited period of time. So meanwhile, we still have to continue and say, fine, we need to create jobs that we can benefit out of what is being built now.
the concept of success varies from person to person, right? And I think we were just talking about the idea of what success is and how it does not necessarily have to be about build. It's not necessarily about having more or bigger or better or taller or more money. It can also be about a sustainable life. It can also be about having a peaceful life, an environment which you can breathe fresh air, perhaps, or walk in the park or walk on the side of the road and not get scared of getting hit by a car or getting mugged or getting robbed or getting killed. What are your thoughts on what a successful nation ought to be, Guenter?
It's a very difficult question because success is defined by each and every individual differently.
Yeah.
To me, success would be to pretty much as you subscribe it or you described it earlier. You can walk freely, you can breathe clean air, which we lack a lot of walking around the Philippines, to have green spots in the city, to be able to utilize public transport to go from point A to point B. And not necessarily, success doesn't necessarily have to be in monetary terms. Yeah? It can be inner peace, it can be, I love the beach, I love scuba diving, I love the tranquility when you're underwater. So it's a multitude of factors that actually determine success.
Governments, especially the Philippine government, has been telling us to be patient. I've been around this country for over 4 decades now, and they still tell us to be patient. Are we ever getting there as a nation, based on your observation? Because you've been around this country as well for more than 40 years as well, right? Or 33 decades. What are your thoughts on that? And are we on the right direction? And if so, can we correct midway? Or what's going on? What are your thoughts on the trajectory of this nation?
Virtue, patience has never been my virtue. Yet I'm here, I've lived here for 32 years. And I take it for what it is. And I've learned one thing in the Philippines: hope is the last thing that dies. At the rate we're going, my personal view here is it'll probably take us another 100 years to get over the finishing line.
Okay.
Yeah. We do things way too slow, we do things way too bureaucratic. We do not normally have the small people on the road in mind with what we do. We do not empower, we do not really build enough infrastructure, enough job creations in order to, and I really sincerely think, and I don't think that the NEDA figures really reflect the true picture, but I think about 60% of the Filipino people live around about
poverty line.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people, and if we don't start seriously thinking about what China did, birth control and whatnot, we will sink as a nation because we just can't sustain it. We have not built any agriculture. We have not build enough poultry, we don't have enough beef, pork, chicken, fish. We run out of everything, and everything is imported, even rice. So we need to do something, and we need to do something quick because our population keeps on exploding and it's getting more and more and more, and we have no means of ever becoming at the rate we're growing. We're just catching up, constantly catching up. We're never getting ahead. We're just catching up. That's all we do. And we'll never be able to get anywhere near self-sustainability in terms of food. So
that's pretty basic, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very basic thing. So if we cannot catch up on this thing, the only other thing we can do is stop the population growth we have. So I guess that would be, to me, probably the success that we need.
Do you have figures on the population growth in the Philippines? Are we increasing our population by leaps and bounds? Is it slowing down at all? Or?
No, it's not. It's still growing, and I think by the year 2025 we hit about 150 million, if I'm not mistaken. So we're growing tremendously.
Wow!
And we've got to put a stop to it because we just can't. Yeah. While it's nice to have big families, but if you can feed them, why have them? Okay.
Exactly.
So again, that's where government has to come in, and also if you look at it from a social security point of view, what social security do we have in place from governments? Not much. And now, add insult to injury, under the new law, they even want to tax people, employees, when they get benefits from their employers in social, in health insurance. So it's a number of things that we need to correct in order to make sure that we actually ever get ahead of ourselves.
I know, Guenter, you have a lot of stuff to do, and maybe we can have another interview some other time. I know you have places to go, things to do, and you have a great big Spartan race that's happening very soon next year, and I think it's happening on the third Saturday of January 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Why don't you invite our viewers who are quite excited to be a part of something great as the Spartan race. It's a total mind over body event, and I think if you guys want to expose yourself to great challenges, so that you will know that you're able to surmount these, and of course life itself. Why don't you tell them all about Spartan Race Philippines? Go ahead, Guenter.
I would like to invite everyone to our next race in Cavite, near Metro Manila, near imperialistic Manila.
I heard it's like 30 minutes away from,
it's 30 minutes
from Manila,
out of
right?
Manila. It'll be a sprint and a super, it'll be a kids race, and it'll be a hurricane heat, all in one day. So there's a lot of activities. If you want to get ready for the race, as I said earlier, we are building a nice facility within the city here for you to train in Crossroads. Meanwhile, we have teamed up with the Gorilla team out in Mandaue. We have a nice obstacle course there where you can train. We have qualified SGX trainers here in the city, which is by the name of Carlo. I guess everybody knows Carlo. So if you want to get ready for the race, make sure you contact the right people. Call on us. You know the numbers. You know just log on Spartan Race Philippines.
Spartan Race Philippines, right?
SpartanRace.ph. Yeah. We'll be happy to assist you. Our next race in Cebu is targeted for, I believe, the Cebu Design Week is first week of June. So we'll come back to Cebu. We are still looking for the venue, for the right venue. It'll certainly be a sprint and probably might be a piste. If not, then we'll see. But it'll be definitely two races: a kids race and a hurricane heat again. So look forward to that. Get ready, and we'll be here for you and with you all the way.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Guenter Taos, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure
And
always.
we're gonna catch up again, maybe some of the time when you're in Cebu. Okay?
Should be good. Great.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, guys, thanks.